I can live, I can love, I can reach the heavens above. I can right what is wrong. I can sing just any song. I can dance, I can fly, and touch the rainbow in the sky. I can be your good friend. I can love you until the end.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ruby, your host for tonight's episode of Connected Different Voices, One Passion, brought to you by the Migrant Writers of Hong Kong. But before we start, let me introduce to you our group, the Migrant Writers of Hong Kong, which was founded last March 30, 2021 by Miss Maria Nemilu Rocio, Miss Eileen May Ramos, and Miss Lisel Marcos Fernandez. Migrant Writers of Hong Kong is a social media platform that aims to connect migrant domestic workers, poets, artists, and storytellers around the world. It allows members to share their poems, stories, arts, and photography. Our group features different challenges and segments that motivates every member to write and share their stories, poems, and essays. Every Monday, we have Monday Prompt, wherein the members are given a theme about daily life to share their poems and stories, and is moderated by Ms. Lisel Marcos Fernandez. And we also have the Monday On Spotlight, featuring writers and poets in the community. Every Tuesday, we have the Creative Tuesday Challenge, in which we feature various artists sharing their artworks as an inspiration in writing. This challenge is being presented by Ms. Divina Molina, one of the admins of the group. Every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, we have Connected Different Voices, One Passion, in which we connect to multi-talented and diverse international poets, writers, storytellers, and authors, delving into their works and achievements and learning from their experiences. Every Thursday, we have a Thursday Photo Challenge, featuring aspiring photographers and using their photos as a motivation in writing. We also have the Monthly Photo Challenge, in which each member will be given a specific photo which they can use as a basis in writing their piece with a theme that differs every month. Every Friday, we have the Friday Challenge, wherein we present different poetic devices and poetry forms as tools for the members to write their pieces. This challenge is being presented by Ms. Maria Nemilu Rocio. And every first and third Sunday of the month, we have the Writers in Motion, featuring writers and poets in the community. The show is being hosted by Ms. Rubliyn Cadao and Ms. Christine Aurelio. And for tonight, our guest is from India. Mr. Shaswata Gangopadhyay is one of the prominent faces of contemporary Bengali poetry. He started writing in the mid-90s. His poems had been published in all major journals of Bengali literature. He had been invited to read his poems in different virtual poetry festivals across the globe, like World Poetry Festival in Argentina and Cuba, International Poetry Festival in Greece, Latin American Poetry held in Chile, Silk Road Poetry in China, and had also participated in the recent World Poetry Festival organized by the Latin American, with other poets from 70 different countries, in celebration of the 85th death anniversary of Federicko Garsija Lorka. His poems are regularly published in all 6 continents through translations in different languages. Among his works are Hardships. His poems have been exhibited in a poetry festival in Museum, Italy, which was the only poetry museum in the world. He was recognized as one of the most promising international poets by the well-reputed The Poet in London. Translations of his poems have been published in more than 100 international journals and anthologies in Europe, America, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Australia. He had been interviewed by the famous Parrot TV of New York. A complete episode of his poems was aired, and he was also invited to read his poems in both UK and USA book fairs organized virtually this year. He was invited to read his exotic poems at the Latin American Book Fair in Peru. He is currently appointed as the advisor of Chinese literature and also one of the associate editors of their poetry collection. He is also nominated as interna- international advisor of the Casa Bukowski International in Chile, which was the largest multi-platform media of Latin American. So, good evening once again,
Very
and
good.
let's
Yes,
welcome our guest for tonight, Sir Gongopadhyay.
yes, definitely. Yes, it's really nice to be here. And as an Asian, we all are connected with our brotherhood and sisterhood. And I am feeling really honored because at present I have deep connections with, as you know, that I am one of the associate editor of Chinese literature, which is one of the largest circulated journal of literature journal of the world. So I am really, it's really a privilege for me to be here and talk with you in different segments, different questions as you will ask me. Definitely,
Let's go straight for number one question, sir.
definitely, yes,
Uh, when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer or a poet, and what inspires you to become one?
yes. Actually, I started writing from mid of 90s of the last century, from 1995. But before that, I have a huge because I was a very voracious reader. Because my father itself, he is a poet and he has more than 30 books, and he was the departmental head of English in a very reputed college of Calcutta here. So actually, my entire environment of my home was in favor of my writings. So my house was full of, I think, more than 30,000 books. So it was at that time I know that my future will be definitely in writings, because not only the literature or poetry in my house, there is a huge background of music, classical music as well, because my father was a very good musician as well. So in my house, in my school days or in my early college days, I was engrossed with poetry, literature and music. And that thing I many of people that recently tell that my poems are very much, what should I say, they are easy to translate, because in that background my poems gathered that the music, I know that there is no translation is needed for the music, or like paintings or like that. So that was my background, and I started writing from 1995. My first book of poems, Inhabitants of Pluto Planets, that published in 2001. So presently I have 5 book of poems. Very recently my selected love poems have been published from Cairo, Egypt, and within this year at least 4 or 5 books of mine will be published from different continents, like from Latin America, Europe, or even from China, and one also can be published from Australia. So actually what has happened, that in the recent past you will agree that the biggest invention in our life is the internet. So as you know that presently we are now not a citizen of a specific country, we are all are netizens. So that's why we all are the inhabitants of a single global village. So here the Europe, Latin America, Australia or Africa all become one single country which is name is the internet. So that's the thing about me.
Oh, okay, sir, you have a very long career.
Yes.
So, where do you get informations or ideas for your works or writings? Like, for example, your book Inhabitant of Pluto or The Offspring of the Monster.
Definitely.
Where do you get your ideas?
Actually, as I have told that from my childhood days, as my surroundings was full of thousand and thousand of books, so I had a knack of reading different type of things, like from science fiction to planchets or to the star world, like that. So that's why I have a knack or attraction for the science fiction. So, in my first book, the name was very striking, Inhabitant of Pluto Planet. Now, Pluto was the distant planet of the solar system. So, that time in my college, early college days, I was little bit shy. So, I was just like Pluto planet among my friends. So that's why the name is Inhabitant of Pluto Planet, because that time I was very shy and I was distant from all my friend circle. I was little bit tongue tied. So that's why the name is Inhabitant of Pluto Planet. Now coming to the offspring of monster, actually many people do not know that in the kingdom of monster there are some peculiar rituals. When a son or daughter of monster bonds, so what's the thing is happening that the monster mother, she does not want to uh, upbring the child because it is very much strenuous to her. That's why offspring of monster, they takes birth as an adult. So that is a very striking thing, that when they born as an adult. So that's the inner meaning of the offspring of monster. And the next book in the holes of red crabs, here poems are very small. In Bengali language the poems are only four lines poems, but there are 36 poems. All are different from each other, so they are just like the small little crabs, found in the seashore. And what is happening, that small little crabs, they are very much shy. Whenever they feels that there is one human is coming, they take shelters in their nest or in the holes of the sands. So that's why name carries that meaning, that the holes of red crabs. And now the next book, there is also a very strange name, that's the rhododendron cafe. So what is happening after COVID? Uh, Two or three words, they have become permanent in our life, like the stress, like the insecurity. So I am very much fond of cafe and coffee, because one is to one chat with a girlfriend or any of my very good male friend. So that is very interesting. I think a conversation, heart to heart conversation. So that poem itself is a romantic poem, Rhododendron Cafe. So the names came from that angle. And finally, my latest book, that is the selected love poems, that has been published from Egypt. Now, Egypt is a very peculiar country, having a wonderful heritage, and I think everybody, every creative person, they like to visit Egypt because of pyramid, because of their very ancient heritage. So it is my privilege that my selected love poems, which is now very much popular, because just 2 days back that book has been inaugurated in South African Book Fair. That has been happened in virtually because of the pandemic. So that poems, I think that there are 34, around 34 poems, that love poems have been published all over the world, I think. Just a minute.
I think we will read some comments here while our guest is away. From Migrant Writers of Hong Kong. Thank you for gracing our invitation, Mr. Shaswata. From Lisel Marcos. Wow, amazing. 30,000 books. It looks like a library, indeed. From Lisel Marcos again. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And we are happy to know your journey to the poetry world, Mr. Shaswata. Mr. Shaswata. And from Miss Nems, good evening, lovely host, and to our special guest. But now our guest is disconnected. I think his connection is poor, so maybe we'll wait for 2 minutes. I think I will read some of Mr. Sashwata's poems entitled Gigulo. I watch him from distance, the young guy, standing at Frisco Street with a hanky tied to his right hand. Tall in height, he appears to be a sailor unknown. Upon his deep blue t-shirt glows a shining line. If being sexy is a crime, arrest me soon. The girls beside measure him with an oblique look. Some of them lick their lips as if it's storm in the wild desert. Oh, okay. I think our guest is back.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Ah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry, there is a
Welcome.
network problem. Yes.
Ah, yes, sir. Welcome. And I was
So
just
if
reading
you
your
are
poem,
wanting that
Gigulo.
I read my two of my poems, yes, it will be honor to me. Just a minute.
Okay, sir. Maybe you can read your 2 poems now.
Definitely, I'm just giving a few seconds time. Uh, yes, poetry of third world. I am nobody, nobody at all. Just a cultivator of cotton belonging to third world. His youngest son. I have grown up by swallowing the froth of sea. On my burned skin, there is printed the world map all over the body. Hunger rises in spiral motion around my stomach. If you give me love, I will multiply it 3 times by sheer magic and put it under your feet. If you give me hatred, if you offend me from my top to bottom, I will come back not to take revenge, but to my writing papers. And I will throw each of my poems one after another just like daggers. Yes, all the boys of third world are just like this. Another poem, a ballad on estrangement. You are not easily available. For me, very tough to meet you. On the Nilgiri mountain, Kurinji flowers blooming in autumn every 12 years gap. You resemble the very identical species. You have bloomed once again during this season all over the valley. Those suffering from leprosy assemble there and believe that they will be cured if they paste grinding petals of a rare species like you on their wounds. All their old maladies will gone for good. Following the equator, I have also come here. We are belonging to the same planet but rarely meeting each other. I will climb to search you using the worn out staircase through mist. We'll be lie down tiringly on the notch of a stone you just cast off upon my body. Open your petals from head to the fingers of your 2 legs. Let the storm dash out. If you put your lips on my lips, you are the sanitarium to me, the secret panacea. Thank you. Yes.
That's a very wonderful point, sir. And like I said a while before, a ballad of estrangement is my favorite one. So can I
Thank you.
ask, sir, who is your inspiration, or what is your inspiration for writing this poem?
Inspiration in my writings. Actually,
Yeah.
the very first inspiration is my father. As I have told that he is a writer. He has more than 30 books in his credit, and he always inspires me. So, and it's really my pride that he is my father. He always acts as a mentor. And in Bengali poetry, there are two legendary poets who are not rightly, they are not in this planet. One is Monindra Gupta. He was a towering poet in Bengali literature, and another is legendary poet is Shankho Ghosh. So these two poems, they are also very good mentor of me. So they are a very good inspiration. And all my friends and my foes, they also acts as an inspiration to in my writings. So these are all about them. You are
Oh,
mute. Yes.
sorry. So
Yes.
let's see. How did publishing your first book change or affect the process of your writings? Did it make you feel pressured, or did you find it easier to come up with ideas?
Okay. Now my first book, that is Inhabitant of Pluto Planet, that's almost was self-published book, because one of my very close friend, they actually published the book, but I was sponsored, and that time I was not familiar with any other famous publisher in Kolkata. But after that, that book has several editions. Rightly, third edition is exhausted. Now, from the second edition onwards, book is published from Shoptorshi Prakashon, which is a very famous publisher in Kolkata. Now, regarding my background, another thing I just want to convey that I write in Bengali, which is the fourth largest language of the earth, and as per UNESCO, it is the sweetest language. So I write in a very big and very enriched language. So that's a real pride for me. But one unfortunate thing is Bengalis are very shy and they don't take any kind of initiative for translating their poems and to uh, take their poems to the global platform. So I have last 3 years. It is really a privilege for me that I have been invited to so many World Poetry Festival to represent my language, as well as to represent my country, because in India there is a peculiar thing, like suppose in China the language is Chinese, suppose in France the language is French, or suppose in Germany the language is German. But in India, there is no one specific language. In India is full of different type of big languages. Even in India, there are 26 or 27 very recognized state languages, out of which one is Bengali. Now, in many World Poetry Festival and many international poetry festival, I have represented India. That's a privilege for me, but at the same time I am also representing Bengali. So that's the thing, I am just bearing the torch of Bengali languages in many international poetry festival.
Okay, thank you for that information, sir. So maybe we can read some comments here from Miss Lisel Marcos. Good evening, poetry community, to our beautiful host and our guests.
Poetry
And
community, about my poetry community, actually I stay in Calcutta, which is the cultural capital of India. So I stay in such a heritage city. Now in Calcutta, there are thousands of little magazine. It is now full of magazine. Now the e-magazine or the web magazine, they are also very much popular. So in Calcutta, there are certain very big and very enriched little magazine, like one is Kabi Sammelan, one is Krittibash, one is Abohman, one is Shudu Bigedui, another is Guhalipi, another is so there are so many poetry journals in Kolkata, and also in India there are few Indian journals where my poems in English translation have been published. So I think in Kolkata there is no scarcity of any poetry platform here. I have the options to be published my poem, to publish my poem in different very excellent poetry journals in Bengali.
that's great, sir.
Yes.
And from Disel Marcos, thank you for reading your poem, Mr. Sashwata. A wonderful poem indeed.
Okay.
And from Miss Nems, that is amazing, sir. Next, what is or what are the most challenging part in publishing a book? Did you ever encounter rejections or bad reviews, sir? If so, how did you handle it?
No, it is my good fortune only that I don't have any bitter experience in publishing my books. Even I am not a very prolific writer, because I have one very strange obsession, that there is a proverb in Greece that one creative person should bath in a river just single times. So that's why my every poems comes with different color, with different subjects and different outfits. So my poems are not very huge in numbers. Now, so my just after writing 25 years, my number of poetry book is just 5. So presently I don't have any bitter experience in publishing book. Rather, I am little fortunate that within a year my poetry books will be published from all six continents, because offers are there. I am taking little time to submit my manuscripts. Already my books have been published from Egypt, and it's just a beginning. So now the entire world has become just a small global village. So there is no any differentiation of any countries. We are again I am saying, we are not the citizen of a specific country. We are just a netizen, because we are the inhabitant of a single village. Now my books will be published globally. That will be a real fortune for me. And presently or fortunately, I didn't face any kind of uh, adverse what should I say, adverse experience regarding publishing my books. Yes, sometimes there are bad review, sometimes there are strange rejections from different journals. But that if the what should I, criticism is constructive, so that sometimes even beneficial to a creative person, because that time one take a greater challenge to publish his writings. So in that case, I think I don't think adverse thing as a negative thing, because they are all my positive things, and they are the inspiration of my going ahead.
Oh, that's very fortunate, sir. So, if ever you receive some bad reviews about your writings, how would you deal with it, sir?
Pardon, can you just repeat the question?
Ah, if ever you will receive some bad reviews or bad comments about your poems, how will you
No,
handle it?
actually, I am little fortunate that that thing didn't happen, because one thing I just want to tell about my poems, that I write in a strange languages which runs between anti poetry and traditional poetry. So my poems are not written in Hebrew alphabet. I think anyone can understand the, because I write in a plain and simple language. So presently or fortunately, no bad comments in Facebook or in social media. I haven't experienced that. But yes, sometimes adverse, what I have just told, that I am repeating, sometimes adverse comments, uh, they inspire me to write more beautiful poems. I am taking that in that angle only, in a very positive note. So presently, I don't have that type of bitter experience or bitter criticism or kind of leg pulling in my writing experience. I didn't found that.
Oh, that's good, sir. From Miss
Yes,
Nance, oh, that is amazing, Sir Sashwata.
yes.
And from Lucille Marcos, how do you handle rejection?
No, suppose I am just giving one example. In last 1 year, there is a very famous poetry journal in Paris. So I think because in Paris, what you know, that 95% poetry journal, they are published in French. There are hardly a very few which is the English poetry journals, or which publishes poems of the entire world in English translations. So in that case, my first cluster of poems was rejected. So then I mailed a different set of poems. Then again it was rejected. So then I take the challenges. So after three times, when I have just mailed them my fourth set of poems, they published with a great honor, because what is happening in Western world, they only believe in the quality. So that is also their beautiful thing. They reject poems, but if the poems they like, they accept it with a great honor. So that was a what a type of eye opener for me, that I didn't take it personally. And it was not my kind of any ego that I will not mail them more poems to them, since the journal is really very famous and it's a global journal. So that one type of experience I had. But when they ultimately published my poems with great honor and with a very big bio of me, so that also comes with a very sweet note, because poems publishing in France or Paris, it's not a very easy thing, because they are one of the headquarters of global poems. Now after that, my poems have been published at least 4 to 5 times in Paris. Also my poems have been included in a world poetry anthology very recently published in Paris. So when, as a young poet, one should take that type of challenge, I think. So rejection sometimes is better for me. Yes. Again, you are mute. Yes, yes.
Okay. So from his name, sir, how does your family react or support your writing?
How does my family inspires my poetry writing? Yes, my wife, she is also a very good reader of my poems. So when before our marriage, she was the very first reader, and also now, as you can understand that she is the very first reader. So they always inspire me, and in last 3 years, as my poems are continuously and regularly published all over the major countries. I think my poems have been published in more than 50 countries, all major countries. My poems have been published, and I am now every week I am invited in a very colorful or big international poetry festival all over the world. So they take it with a great honor, and I think they always inspire me, definitely.
Oh, that's great, sir. They are very supportive. So maybe you can read the other two points, sir.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
With a great honor, I am just reading. A day of days. A day of days comes such a way, as if a jockey is bending his body on a naughty horse. Before the blinking of eyes, 24 hours are over. A day of days comes even such a way, as if a snail crawls with its tired body, even a single minute hangs heavy on it. A day of days comes such a way, as if it's the very gape of a gluttonous monster, whose uvula is visible deeply red. Nightmares are pacing up and down. A day of days comes even such a way, like cooling watermelon in hot summer noon. While biting, it seemed as it were God standing just a hand apart. A day of days comes such a way, when words, like the tiny fishes in hearts, glitter in the midst of poems. A day of days comes even such a way, when there is no word in the fingers. Just like the smoke of burning dry leaves, it vanishes in the ether in circles. Another poem, A Day in a Shopping Mall. As soon as I push myself in through glass door, two silky sylphs come floating like the bubbles of water. Most welcome, sir. Just take this in your finger. This is the key to trade town and walk with your trolley. All around, there are so many tinsel offers displayed. If you get an item elsewhere less costly, you will get twice the margin. If you buy a bed sheet, your sleep at night's assured. In such, in each of your eyelids will come wavy and foamy doves. If you purchase condom in bulk for the whole year, you will get 25% discount on each weekend tour. From the parts my credit card jumps, I see our joys and sorrows, smiles and tears when I know not, are sold out like the frozen fishes in the packet. It's beyond 9 o'clock. As night falls, lights are off. When coming out, few others whisper mildly, if you procure love in your hand, along with your deep sighs are free. I think the last poem, any citizen of the third world, they can reconnect with the poems because now we are all in the culture of shopping malls. Very colorful, very bright, very lucrative shopping malls where with a love your deep sighs are free.
Yeah, indeed. So, what about the A Day of Days, sir? What is your inspiration in writing this one?
Uh, I think the last poem, it was written in 2008. That time in Kolkata, there were so many shopping malls evolved just like a mushroom. In very colorful, very tinsel shopping malls with all type of lucrative and colorful offers. So actually, I visited one shopping mall in the night. I was alone, and there are several very lucrative offers like that. One is to one free with all type of cookies, food items like that. So that time the poems was written in my mind, and I was just building one after another lines in my mind. So after, when I take the exit from the shopping mall, so that time I found this line that whenever you procure love in your hand, your deep sighs were free. So after returning from the shopping mall, I sat under a tree in the pavement, and that time even I don't have any paper in my pocket. So that time I just collected one foil of cigarette packet from the footpath, and just started to writing the lines after lines in that papers of the cigarette packet. Now after that, one strange thing happened. Uh, since that poems was very colorful 14 years back, the poem was rejected from three different very famous Bengali journal. So after that, I placed my that poem in my second book, that is the Offspring of Monster. Now in last 3 years, that a day in a shopping mall was published in at least 7 to 8 languages. It was published in Spanish, it was published in Chinese, it was published in Russian, it was even published in Serbian, it was published in Arabic. Now the poems which was rejected by three famous Bengali journal, now that has poems have been included in more than I think 5 or 6 world poetry anthology. And now the poem is now having a resurrection, because it has now a rebirth, because now people can correlate the poems with this shopping mall culture. Even a very young poet from Nigeria, he has written a very 6 or 7 line languages, that how he can correlate as a citizen of third world with this poem, because all we gets a little bit surprised when you enter in a shopping mall. I think you can also correlate the poems with your experience.
Ah, yes, sir. Sometimes I use tissue paper to write my poems. But
Definitely.
your rejected poems are rejected for a reason.
Oh,
Now it
yes,
is
yes.
reviving.
Okay.
So from Lisel Marcos. Wow, congratulations, Mr. Sashwata. I will remember that. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you very much. And just I have from my side, I have a very small suggestions that as we Asians, we need a Asian poetry festival because my poems are very much popular and regularly published in Latin America. They are all the countries of Latin America. They are so widely connected and widely united that they have very frequent Latin American poetry festival where all the prominent poets of different countries of Latin America, they unite in a single platform. They read their poems. But in Asia, there is no such Asian poetry festival. Now, in last 2 years after the pandemic and during that pandemic, one very interesting things have been discovered or invented, that is the like this Zoom or StreamYard platform, because now there are so many virtual poetry festival. It's really free of cost, and it is for the organizer, it is very easy to arrange. So from my side, from the heart of India, I am just suggesting that if you arrange a Asian poetry festival where all the major poets of different countries of Asia, they can unite and they can read their poetry in a Asian poetry festival. That's a small suggestion from my side from India.
Yes, sir. And so next, oh, what is the most challenging part being an associate editor?
It's a honor to be as one of the associate editor of Chinese literature, because as you know that Chinese Mandarin in the largest language of the native language of the earth, and being because of the huge Chinese population, as you know, so it's a very largely circulated magazine and everybody knows about Chinese literature, because in my childhood days my father used to purchase Chinese literature magazine, because Chinese literature itself very artistic magazine. It's not very colorful, but it has a very great heritage, and poems and stories are published very neatly with very artistic illustration. Now as an associate editor, one good things I can convey or I can share here, that I have presently poet friends around the world. Even I have poet friends from very small country like Papua New Guinea, like Solomon Island, like Fiji Island. So this is the blessings of internet, or this is the blessings of Facebook as well. So now whenever my editor asks poems of my friends, suppose my friends are spread all over the world, so many times I mail them English translation of any very promising poet of Latin America, or any very promising poet from Germany, Italy, USA, Russia. So that's the, I think there is no challenge, because it is just a put my hand to my hand of my editors, and they have selected associate editors from different countries of the world, one from Italy, one from Germany, like that, one from Mexico. So it is once again a humble reminder, that's the entire thing, that we are part of the inhabitants of one single global village. That's the thing.
Oh, thank you for that, sir. And this one, as a literature advisor, in your opinion, what makes a poem or a story good?
Actually, there is no hard and fast rule. If I suppose, if I read 10 poems and found one which is as per my sense, which is very good and which stimulates me and which inspires me, so that poem I select to be published. So because there is no any hard and fast rules or any kind of what should I say, any fixed regulations that this poem is good, because poems are of different types. So if I find any poems which stimulates me, which inspires me, so that that poems I select as a very good poem, and it should be published in the language, in the literature.
And what was the hardest scenes or poems have you written, sir?
Actually, hardened scenes, I don't have any hardened scenes, but one thing I just want to share, because that's a little bit peculiar thing, that in my selected love poems, there are love poems of different shades, like the poems which I have recited, a ballad on estrangements. That's a very, what should I say, very deep romantic poems. But at the same times, I have little poems which are just like dark chocolates. They are love poems, but they are very bitter. Like I have one poems, the name of the poem is Snake Oman. Or I have a poem whose name is Poisonous Mushroom or a Prayer. So that you can understand that I have a very love and hate relations with someone. So some poems are very romantic, but some poems are very dark, but at the same times they represent a very I think a tray of variety of love poems, because all the poems are of same type of things, that remain very boring thing to the readers. So I think that type of different shades I have, particularly in the book of my selected love poems.
Mm, So, have you ever regret publishing or sharing your poems or books publicly?
No, I don't have any kind of regret, because it is my fortune till date I didn't get any kind of very what should I say, very kind of dark comments, dark criticism in the social network, because it has been it is a thing that in last few years uh, we are hugely socially connected. Everybody is posting our poems in Facebook or like that. So in that case everything has been very open, it has been a very open platform, because even a layman, they can put a very harsh type of comments or harsh type of criticism in anybody's under the anybody's poems. But fortunately till now I didn't got any type of that type of very harsh comments. But if I also get any kind of harsh comment, it is in my future, I don't bother, because I know that what I write. Another thing I just want to share that in the regarding this social media, actually last year I my with my poems USA book fair was inaugurated. Now when they are taking my interview uh, offline, I asked one thing, that how did you know about my poems? So they have told me one peculiar thing, that Shaswata, whenever your poems are published in Bengali, we are not aware. But whenever your poems are published in English translation in different parts of the world, everything has been accumulated in Google or in Yahoo or in Microsoft Bing. So now one can search, because if you just for an example, if you type just poet Shaswata Gangopadhyay in Google's, you can find all the accumulated reference there. So that's why the world has become so small, because that's the positive side of the, I think, social media or the internet or the virtual world. So whenever we are taking the positive side of the virtual world, we should be ready to the also take the negative side means that kind of harsh comment, any leg pulling type of reactions. So we don't bother, so we are taking the good things, and we are ready to take the bad things as well, I think. and in a very good spirit.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Yes.
So, among all your works or books, which do you think is the best you have written and why?
Now, presently, I have five books, but it's a strange thing that my very first book is accepted most, because that book was totally different. That book speaks of a different world, because in my earlier age, just like any other type of person, I was very much romantic. I live in an imaginative world. So inhabitants of Pluto planet is the most popular, I think. And that book, all my poems were written in rhythms. So in Bengali, there is a tradition of writing poetry in rhythms. So that is another thing why that book is the most well accepted. And that book, even the third edition is exhausted, and publisher is going to publish the fourth edition. So my very first book is the most popular. Even my second book, that is also, because my second books, uh, the most poems of my second books have been translated in different languages. So my first two books is most popular and most well accepted, I think.
Okay, and in publishing your book, sir, what are the most surprising things you learned about your writings or publishing your books?
Actually, in publishing my books, uh, I have already clarified my separate books. The name denotes some very mysterious things. And one thing I may share with you, that among my books, one kind of appreciation recently I always get, that your poems are very original. Because what I think, uh, many poets, they love to be influenced by the senior poets. But what I think, that if I write something different, if I write something brand new, that's only there is a justification of writing my poems. Because if I repeat the same thing which my ancestor has written, I think there is no meaning of writing poems. Because in that case, I am always repeating what already written in Bengali languages. So that is, I think, the one of the motto, that I should be always different from my co-poets. So that's the thing I always try to maintain, that what I have told, that I always try to maintain the thing, that my every poems come with a different outfit, different colors, and different subjects. They are just like, they are not just like the eggs of poultry, uh, having the same kind of shape and subject.
Yes, yes, sir. And from Miss Nams, have you had any regret of being a writer?
No, I don't have any regret. But whenever one become a poet, on become a writer, so in everybody's life, they have to sacrifice many things, because I write so that after my death, my poems gets the rebirth. So for that, poetry writing is not a 100-meter race. It is a marathon race. It's a lifelong race. So I don't have any regret. If I get the opportunity for another birth, then I will be, once again, I will be a poet itself. So I think that's the thing. I don't have any kind of regret. So should I read my last poem?
Okay, sir, you can read your last poems.
Yes. So my last poem is a strange poem, because you can correlate uh, this poem very much. That is, the name of the poem is Feng Shui. It has been already translated in Chinese, and in the last year, in a very international poetry festival of China, that is Silk Road Poetry Festival. These poems have been uh, included in that anthology, and what I got the news that this poem has been little popular in China. So I am reading out my last poem, Feng Shui. Let us listen to what the Feng Shui experts advise. The middle-aged couple suffering from depression. 1. Just place 3 crystal balls at the northeast corner of the room. They may tone up the warmth of relationship. 2. The dragon over there, for its curvy tail and shoulder, just buy it to the home. On the bed of sleeping chamber, it will tease the body with a lightning flash at dead of night. 3. Then after a long stretch of time, the fairy tale begin. Purchase for this a golden ship with sails, which like a dolphin will carry you on its back during intercourse to a grassy green land. 4. Do you think what to carry with you? Just touch upon the laughing smile of Buddha. If all this fail, then in a winter afternoon, on opening the west window, let the aged couple look at the sunset only.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. So, can you tell us more about that poem, or how did you write? How did you come up with it?
Yes, actually, this poem was published in the topmost journal of Bengali literature. Its name is Desh. So, in a festival issue of Desh literary magazine, it was published. Actually, that time in Kolkata, there are establishment or opening of few Feng Shui shops. So once in a newspaper, I got the review of a Feng Shui shop where every items they denote something, some inner meanings that for the customers. That suppose if you purchase the dragon, it will acts as a lightning or thunderbolt in your relationship, like that. If you purchase laughing Buddha, it will bring peace to your family. So that at that time I found it very striking, because I always write different type of things. So by accumulating this type of strange items, so I wrote this poem, and I think you can understand it much better as compared to any other country, because Feng Shui itself very what should I say, it's a very colorful rituals in your community. So that's why I ended up my poetry reading with that poem.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. And how did poetry or literature affect your daily life? Did it exhaust you or energize you?
No, whenever a poem or a life of poem comes, if I write tonight a very poem which really stimulates me, I think for a poet, that's the biggest prize. Because suppose if I get the opportunity of leading a ship of different beautiful girls to Tahiti Island, or I am fortunate to write a poem tonight which really satisfies me, so that the second option is the greatest prize for, I think, every kind of very honest creative person. Because the satisfaction which I get after writing a poem, writing a good poem, that's the biggest prize and biggest passion of a poet. So I think that really stimulates me, that really energizes me. If I get, I think, from the heaven a very stimulating line, poetry line, from which I can start my next poem, so that really it does not exhaust me, rather it energizes me very much.
Yes, sir. If you love what you're doing, you will never get tired of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we have our last question. What strategies do you use to write? Or what are the common traps or hardships you have encountered in writing, and how did you deal with it?
Actually, there is no specific strategy, because every poem, they are just like different, you can say different birds whose voice is different. So there is no strategy. Some poems come with a structure of sonnets of 14 lines. Some poems comes in a just like a fountain, because you know that the poems I read here, that a day of days, they are just like a hilly fountain. So I think there is no specific rituals or specific strategies for writing any poems. They come as they want to come. There is no common traps to for a single bird. They are different bird, and they come with different music in their throats.
So, for our last, before we end our show, sir, what are your message to our viewers, or do you have something to promote, sir?
Just one thing I want to communicate it, which I have several times communicated in this show, that in last 2 years after the pandemic, because everybody will agree that this phase of last 2 years, that pandemic, the uncertainty, the stress, the nightmare, all things, all these are the worst phase of everybody's life, because we have lost many of our friends, many of our dear and near ones. Now it is the time to be remain united globally, because poets are all poets are creative person, and the blessings of the last 2 years, that this type of Zoom or StreamYard, now it is very easy to remain connected globally. So and one hand, there is a blessings of remain connected in social media, and another side, it is very easy to remain in Zoom or in StreamYard. So right now, once again, I am telling the same thing now, that in the last few years, after the invention of internet, world has become really too small, because you are sitting in Hong Kong, I am sitting in Kolkata, but we are not connected, and we are just having chat with each other. So I think this is the right time, because this is the nightmare, I think, time of nightmare in all of our night, because this is the hardest time, hardest phase of our life which have we have faced so far. So I think it is the real time to be connected globally. Now the entire world become as a single small village. So there are even not even demarcation of different countries, because we all are netizens, and we want to remain connected more tightly in the coming years. That's the only message on the thing I just want to convey with all the poets.
Yeah, definitely, sir. We are all connected.
Yes.
So, do you have any books to promote, sir, or do you have any upcoming books?
Just I want to show one book of mine. This has been published, the new edition, very recently. I think you can see that is the offspring of monster. So this is the cover. It's a very strange book, because the maximum poems of these books have been published more than 40 countries in at least 8 to 10 languages. So this is the recent edition. This has been published, the second edition, and the second edition is already exhausted, and another publisher is going to publish the next edition. So I am just revealing the cover of this book. This is the offspring of monster.
Oh, that's nice, sir. I thought they were novels.
No, no, no.
Because,
Yes,
yeah, because of the titles, I thought they were novels. So,
yes.
any other, sir?
Another thing, if anyone is interested to know about my poems, if anyone type my name with the right spelling, that is Shaswata, then Gangopadhyay in Google or in Yahoo or in Microsoft Word, so they can get several links, also several poetry readings video even in YouTube, so they can be well aware of my poems.
Yes, sir. I was searching the Google this morning and I saw your name there.
Yes. In
So,
Facebook, the spelling is little different to avoid by office colleague, but the proper spelling is Shaswata. So one can read many of my poems through internet or through Google.
thank you, sir, for tonight. Thank you for the informations. And we have some comments here from Migrant Writers of Hong Kong. Thank you, Mr. Sashwata, for the inspiring night and looking forward to reading your book.
Thank you
Yes, sir.
very much, and it's my real privilege to be here, and it's a great honor to me as well as. And I will definitely love to be here among you once again in recent future. It's
Yes.
really a privilege for you, and my sincere gratitude, my sincere thanks that you have invited me. All
Thank
the
you very
best.
much, sir, for accepting
Thank
our
you.
invitation. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Good night.
Good night,
Oh,
sir. Good night, madam.
thank you so much, Mr. Sashwata from Miss Giselle Marcos.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Bye bye. Good night.